Hello everybody, and welcome to AmateurCast, where I get you and your replays casted for my entertainment, and hopefully to help you improve a little bit as well. I'm your host, ZookaMan, and we're going to be going into a ZVP. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our players. So, starting off with the protest player in the bottom left-hand side of the map. Overgrowth, I believe, is what the map's name is called. I can't remember exactly, but I believe that's what it's called. And he's going to be spawning in as the red protest player. And his opponent on the opposite side of the map, we see ChanKiM as the purple Zerg player. And this map's actually pretty bright. Maybe that's just me. Looks like there's a pretty bright stuff going on here. Maybe my monitor's turned on or up or something. But ZVP matchup. What are we seeing in the ZVP matchup? Well, we're seeing one of two things coming out for the protest player. Is either A, we're going to be seeing a gateway expand, or a forge fast expand. If we're seeing a gateway expand, I kind of expect to see a gateway come down soon. We already do have the pylon up at the natural expansion, which makes me think we can probably see a forge fast expand coming up. That will be my best guess. From the Zerg side of things, would love to see an earlier hatch come down, followed by a later pool, but it looks like ChanKiM going to decide to go for the pool first, which is still a viable strategy. Would mind seeing him get gas a little bit earlier as well, but I can't really imagine him going to really anything gas heavy. He might be just trying to throw his opponent off, and I would have to assume I'm probably going to be grabbing a natural expansion fairly shortly, as this map is a little bit crazy. Protest player is going to be dropping down his Nexus first back home. Good response to the scout, and then he saw that his opponent was going for that hatchery and able to respond accordingly. Is going to be going up into his forge, so that we're going to be seeing a forge fast expand coming up. As to be expected, Zerglings will be hitting the map in a little bit here. Already has that spawning pool up. Metabolic boost is going to be a little bit delayed because the gas hasn't been taken yet, but I don't think he's really looking to do anything really major with gas. A little bit here might throw a few Zerglings in his opponent's face, but by the time that they get across the map, this should be walled off by at least a probe, if not a zealot or a sentry, depending upon which IDkid decides to go for. Next is going to come up back home is... that's not the next. So it looks like they're actually going to be coming up fairly standard on the timing. Something to point out here, folks. I know the map is a little bit new. And I haven't actually personally tried to wall this off yet myself. Speaking of which, ChanKiM going up on the third base. But I haven't tried to wall this off myself. However, I disagree with using the double pylon in the wall. Yeah, I guess you could argue that he is trying to get that up so that the Zerglings aren't able to do as much damage, are actually going to get into the main base, but there's not really a whole lot of them there, so there's not really going to be too much damage done as long as he is careful. He's going to be pulling quite a few drones here, probes here, to kind of deal with that. He's going to micro them back. Effectively, Zerglings are going to just be able to scout out a little bit. Third base is up from ChanKiM at this point. And by that, I mean it's just about a quarter of the way from being done. He's going to be pretty much droning up at this point, not really looking to do any sort of further early pressure. He's going to be like keeping his Zerglings around to kind of get a little bit of scouting off. And it's going to like quite a bit of mining time as well, which is a little bit of a win situation for him. We do have our Cyberknight score coming up in the natural expansion. I'd love to see him drop down at least his gas 2, right, his gas 3, excuse me. As he's going to be going up onto the either Stargate or Robotics Tech, respectively, depending upon what it is he decides to go for. And the gas is going to be a good thing, especially if we're going to be seeing the Stargate Tech. But once the Cyberknight core comes up and he starts getting that Warp Gate on the tech, Warp Gate Tech on the field, excuse me, I would like to see him add on at least gas 3, just to help out with the gas production. ChanKiM going up onto his third base at this point does have double gas coming up into his main base, which is probably going to be saving up for the metabolic boost. Might be seeing a Roach follow up to that. I don't expect to see a Muta follow up to that, simply because, well, I suppose he could go for Muta production. I don't find it very likely, but he very well could at this point. IDkid going up onto Stargate Tech, which is an interesting choice. Once again, folks, for those of you who do not know, Stargate Tech is usually used as a counter to the early mutas. Sometimes you can see them go into Void Rays, but the problem that I've seen in the past with the Protoss players who go up into Void Rays, especially in the Diamond and Masters League, they end up going into the Void Ray production a little bit too much, and it takes away from the production of the rest of their... It takes away from the production of the rest of their army. So we're going to be seeing IDkid going up onto third base. He's going to be going for the Phoenix Tech. Metal Boost coming up on the field for a Zerg player. Also has that layer coming up as well, which is going to be good. I would expect something to come out of this. It's kind of hard to see what ChanKiM is doing at this point, as he's just going to be going to sit back and essentially macro up for a little bit here. Warrior projection has started for our Protoss player. He's going to get finished up on his wall here. Overlord is going to be caught out by the Phoenix. Is going to be taken care of quite handily. Now ChanKiM knows exactly what his opponent... Well, not exactly what his opponent is doing, but he does know that there's a Phoenix on the field, which means Stargate Tech is on the field. Which means that Mutalisk production is... Unless he's going for it crazy en masse, he's not going to be able to get a lot of damage done with that. However, he's going to be going for the correct response here. He's going to be going up into the Roach Hydra build. The Roach Warren is already on the way, as well as that Hydra Sten just laid down. Stalker coming up here to a little bit with this Mothership Core to do a little bit of aggression here to this natural expansion. I expect them skidding the Roach Warren, as we do have 22 Zerglings on the field, or coming out on the field to try to stop them, and that's pretty much going to take care of the one Stalker and Mothership Core. And that's going to be that, folks. The Phoenix is coming up into the main base. Hungry getting a few shots off on the Overlords there. And then we have the Zerglings moving out across the map to do a little bit of a counter pressure at its opponent's base. Cloud Constitution coming out on the field, plus that with that +1 Roach attack, which I think is a really brilliant plan. It's going to be going for the sentries up at that third base, which is a little bit odd. I'd much rather have seen them in this natural expansion as opposed to the third base. Or a couple in both would be fine. Zerglings are going to be dancing back and forth, not really wanting to engage under that cannon. They probably can, but I don't think that the losses for him would be really worth the effort of that. Meanwhile, we're going to be seeing ChanKiM going up onto his infestation pit. Is probably using that for hive tech. He might be getting infestors, but I don't really see a reason why he would at this point, because he doesn't really see a lot of what his opponent's doing. If when it was going for something like a heavy blink stalkers, I would definitely agree with getting the infestors. However, at this moment, I would say either get it for the hive tech for upgraded 3-3, or just have it for later in the game when you need it. So I'm going up onto hive tech here, which is a very good response. Is going to be a little bit behind on his inject there, it looks like. There we go, getting up on that. So, we do have a Group of Spines, I believe is what the upgrade is called. Yep, Group of Spines, which increases the range of the Hydralisk. ChanKiM going to be moving out here towards the third base. Going to try to get a little bit of damage done here. We might indeed see him do that. He's going to be going for double prong attack, kind of baiting his opponent away, saying looky here, and then going in with another side. Roaches over here are going to be pretty much taken care of by the Void Rays and the Mothership Core. However, Roaches over here are going to be kind of pushed back by the army of the Protoss player, and the reinforcements of those Void Rays are probably going to be able to be enough to take care of these Roaches. Fourth base is up for ChanKiM back home. He's going to be starting his Hydralisk production, and now that he is seeing that the Void Rays are coming out more and more, I definitely do agree with the fact of the Infestors. As they're just a very good unit against a large number of Void Rays. If you can lock them down and kill them with the Hydralisk. Go Force Fields are going to force the units here to be pretty much sacked to the Xel'Naga, which is fine indeed. Cruise Ride is going to be coming out a little bit late here, which is kind of a good, hard thing to remember when trying to pressure your opponent and keep him from killing you with Void Rays and such. Protoss Slayer is going to be moving out here, 180 to the 132 supply, definitely in favor of our Zerg player, as well as having that defender's advantage. This might not be exactly the best engagement here for IDkid. However, keep in mind, folks, that he does have the Void Rays on the field, which means that if there aren't really a whole lot of Hydros, this is going to be in a pretty bad position. Spine Cars are going to be added on here, but the Zealots are going to be getting up into the 4th base. Protest player is going to fall back, not really feeling comfortable enough to keep on attacking here. Definitely agree with that as opposed to going and throwing away his army. Zealots are going to maybe get the hatchery. Oh, hatchery is going to go down, which is a huge advantage here from IDK, or IDkid, excuse me, which is a very good thing to see him have happen. Slamming that 4th base is going to be putting himself on even grounds with the Zerg player. Back home, we do see the fleet bacon added on, and yes, I did some bacon because bacon is delicious, as well as that robotics facility. I did see a couple of robotics facilities added on, as well as the robotics bacon going to be coming up as well. Going to be transitioning into massive AoE, and I would assume that the fleet beacon is for carriers, which also helps out a little bit there too. That being said, Zerg player is going to be coming up into the natural 3rd base over here, as well as going for the 3rd base on the other side. Could use to snipe the 4th base. Here comes the Ancient Engagement. A couple of warriors are going to get caught off by the Vipers nice and well. However, a couple of good force units are going to keep the units from being able to do as much damage as they possibly can. And ChanKiM going to be forced to fall back once again. However, the Roaches did get into the 3rd base. And they are going to be getting a few probe kills. I much would rather seen a couple of Roaches go into the 4th base and cancel that. However, this is going to get some damage done, which is definitely a good thing. It's also going to stop his opponent from getting a little bit more probes out ahead of him. 75 to 68 Harvesters in favor of a Zerg player at this point. But our Protest player is going to be going up onto Colossus Tech. What I'd like to see from ChanKiM at this point, I like the fact that he went into those Vipers. And they definitely were going to be a good idea against the Colossus. What I would suggest is to see him go up onto either continuing his Viper reduction or go up onto Corruptors so that he is able to take care of those Colossus, because those are going to be the big deal here for a little bit, as we don't really have a whole lot of AoE in like Templar and stuff at this point. Most of what the army is composed of right now is the Void Rays, which is going to be a big problem. We do have the Infestor coming out on the field with fungal growth to be able to kind of deal with that. We do 3-2 coming out from our Zerg player. We have the Protoss player on 2-0, which is a little bit odd. Meanwhile, Protoss player is going to be looking to move out a little bit there and then deciding to fall back once again. However, the Zerg player is going to be coming up with a maxed out army of Infestors, Vipers, Roaches, and Hydras. Oh my. And those are going to be going into a favorable position here to try to catch the Protoss player at an odds and ends. Here comes the main army coming up from the side. We do have a little bit of units coming into the natural expansion as well, but they aren't really going to be able to do a whole lot of damage. 4th base is under assault. A couple of good feedbacks on the Infestors are going to keep those from being able to use efficiently. Meanwhile, ChanKiM is going to be putting out his units, getting a few good fungal growths off, but maybe not really enough for this engagement. Needs to fall back. A couple of additional units are going to be dying too. A couple of good force shields from our Protoss player, who is now going to decide to move out once again, and he does have a drop coming out into the main base. Is going to be pretty much dispatched, however, by that. Back home, we do have the Roaches going to be able to take out a gateway, I believe, which is going to be make the wall a little bit larger, but isn't really going to be able to take, isn't going to be able to do as much damage as you would necessarily want with those units. This base is going to be sacked from ChanKiM. There's no really good way he can save that. Just needs to kind of bide his time and let his units kind of group up together again, because he's going to need to have the advantage here. Here you're going to see his his army is going to go into this army from the Protoss player. Is going to be actually having fairly good success here, but the Protoss player does have a lot of AoE on the map. He might be able to scrape by. Oh, no. Gonna barely. Oh. Looks like he's going to barely scrape by and keep his opponent at bay for right now. 20 more Hydros are going to be added on. 5th base is going to be destroyed for our Zerg player in that engagement. Now, for the Protoss player, I'd love to see him add on his own 5th base. I would love to see him kind of go up into additional gateway units here. He's going for a very, very tech-heavy unit composition of essentially a few Stalkers and mostly Void Rays and Colossus. which is very good against Roach Hydra, but not really good against Hydra. 5th base coming up from our Protest player back home. We do have a contingency of Hydralisk going to be moving out across the map towards that 4th base to kind of give it a little bit of assault. Only 2 cannons really there to be able to defend that. You know, we have a couple of Hydras coming out over towards this base here to do a little bit of damage. Also, we're going to have quite a few Hydralisks die over there to the army of our Protest player. We're only seeing our Protest player going up onto Tempest at this point, which is kind of a curious decision considering that ChanKiM is going to be going up onto, I would have to assume, Corruptor Production. He did get the Spire, and that would be make the most sense here. Mutas might be a little bit helpful, but I think Corruptors are probably more likely. I guess Mutas are probably more likely now that I think about it, because the Mutalisks will be able to do a lot more damage against the Void Rays than the Corruptors would be at that point, because the Void Rays would just be able to melt away the armor that is the Corruptors. We know we have a Zealot Warplane coming up and assaulting this 5th base is gonna... Oh, that's Mike. That's Hatchery's probably going to have to be forced to cancel for right now, which is a huge pickup from our... Oh, cancel! Cancel, ChanKiM! ChanKiM! Oh! Barely going to keep that alive. Youcha! Hatchery's going to barely stay alive, and that's only going to die to another Zealot Warpin. But that being said, Zerg player is going to be moving out to the 5th base of his opponent, and is going to be getting the Mothership Core, which is going to be a huge advantage here. Tempest have been added on into this army, and we are going to be seeing additional Templar added in as well for the extra bit of AoE. Oh, let's see for Zooka. Oh, looks like we're having a major engagement here. We're already having the army split up a little bit here. Storms are going to be coming up onto the side over here, and the units are going to be pressing in from both sides, actually. Going to get a lot of damage done here. Both Tempests are going to go down. Colossus are going to go down. ChanKiM looking like he's going to be really handily winning this engagement, but a couple of Warpin and additional units are going to be all that IDkid has... All that IDkid needs in order to push that back. But he held on by the skin of his teeth. I believe that's what the saying is. Spine Crawlers are going to be coming up down at this base. He does need to move forward and try to snipe the Warp Prism here, which is going to be getting a nice little bit of damage done here. More Hydras going to be added on to the field. I would love to see the addition of either Mutalisks or Corruptors at this point. I would say probably Mutalisks would be a good idea, for the sake of being able to snipe the Colossus very, very easily. Not to mention that the Tempests are out on the field as well, even though it looks like he's going to kind of foreseek that for the Colossus production. Protest player is going to be very low in his money now. Really going to be spending those on the Colossus. Zerglings are going to be getting up into the main base here, while the Hydros are going to engage the small army we have here. ChanKiM going to be getting a few good impulsive goes off on the army of IDkid. And IDkid just going to GG out. Did not have the units to be able to take on his opponent's army. So, what's something we can learn from this, folks? Well, first off, one of the things I want to point out is the fact that the wall was never really officially re-walled off. So the Zerglings were able to get back into the main base. And true, they didn't really get as much damage done as you would expect, but they still got a little bit of damage done. They were going to get an assimilator. They had access to the robotics bay. They had access to the fleet beacon. They had access to quite a few important tech structures of the Protest player. From the Protest side of things, just losing into the arcs in general of the Zerg player taking advantage of the map and the open areas in order to engage directly. I still think that IDkid really needed to focus a little bit more on his gateway army than really focusing on this kind of Tempest, Void Ray, Colossus composition for most of the game, with Archons and a couple of Stalkers and Zealots kind of mixed in there. Looking over the upgrades real quick here, folks. 2320 to 30, which is going to make all the difference here. No force fielding capabilities in that last fight at all either, which is a valid point to make, but IDkid just really didn't have the resources there with the 5th base getting sniped. So, well, I was going to say one last thing about the Zerg player and his play. Oh well, I'm sure I'll remember it later. um, Regardless, I think that's going to be it for this replay, folks. As always, if you enjoyed it, please comment, like, subscribe, share. You guys know the drill by now. If you have any feedback for my cast, or of how I can, well, I guess that's just still feedback. Any feedback for the cast, please leave them in the comments below, or you can, of course, email me as well. Email is going to be in the description below if you would like to send in replays of your own. Right now, I'm currently using basically replays from Arcasta because I don't have any replays from my email. So when that comes in, I usually will use those first. So, folks, I think that's going to be it. As always, this has been ZookaMan, and we will see you on the next cast.